Hello and welcome to an On the Other Hoof Cheltenham special. The other night we previewed our first Cheltenham races with the Supreme Novices, the Neptune, and also the Out Bartler with special guest Tom Stanley. You can find that on our YouTube page. This evening we're tackling the big four races, the championship races, the Champion Hurdle, Champion Chase, World Hurdle, and also the Cheltenham Gold Cup at the back end of the week. Introducing you to the panel, my name's Luke Elder. We have Callum Adele from Timeform, and also a member from the last 2 years, and maybe the Cheltenham Festival winners enclosure the last few years. Nick Schofield, thank you again, Nick, for joining us.
Hello.
How are we doing? Are we all good?
Good, all good.
I have to make this comment again. I made it off air. You've got a coat on indoors.
The boiler's not working great at the moment.
It's not working great, is it? That wasn't the answer you gave us first. Yeah. You're getting a sweat on, aren't you? Just to get the weight down. That's more like it. And Callum Adele from Timeform, good evening, Callum, as well.
Good evening. I think it's
We're more accustomed to your face, really, aren't we?
Yeah, unfortunately so.
Yeah. Well, mine and Callum's Cheltenham preparations are fairly laid back. Nick, regarding yours, do you just carry on as normal with what you do? Do you try and ride out a little bit less, maybe be a bit more tentative with rides you take, or do you just crack on as normal?
No, I've been riding out most mornings. I'm in Paul's tomorrow, Harry Fry's on Saturday, be Kelso racing Sunday, and probably Taunton or Northampton Monday. So yeah, it's fairly normal. I think from a jockey's and trainer's point of view, try not to get into the hype, as it were, and try and treat it as any other day.
I was going to say, you're racking up the miles to Kelso this season, aren't you?
Yeah, Paul's enjoyed. He's had a successful few trips, and there's good prize money. It's competitive racing this Sunday, so won't be easy, but we'll try our best.
Yeah, fair enough. That's Unionista, who will be Grand National bound a little bit later on in the season. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But Nick, we have to congratulate you as well, albeit a year late, with Quorlando in the Fred Winter. Probably not the horse that would have been expected of Paul Nicholls to win the race. He had a few in it, but Quorlando did it very nicely in the end.
Yeah, the Fred Winter is always quite tough. If you look past back through previous years, it's probably not the hardest race to win at the festival, but he was a solid jumper. He was well handicapped on the day, and we had a lot of luck in running, and things went his way that day. So hopefully get something like that this year.
Did you manage to appreciate that win more? Obviously, you won on Hunt Ball a few seasons ago, but did you manage to take it all in this time with your second win at the festival?
Yeah, certainly, and yeah, I think you've got to cherish everyone. I think everyone appreciates how hard it is to win there. You get the best of Ireland, England, and I can't tell you from a rider's point of view how competitive it is. There's no inch given, and you do need a lot of luck on your side. I know it sounds silly, but you just need things to fall right for you, and your horse to be good enough for and foremost, and to be in the right place at the right time.
Yes, Quorlando provided Nick with his second festival victory last season, the first one coming on Hunt Ball just a few years ago. But Quorlando is a horse that we will see at the festival just next week. The festival over 4 days away now. It's counting down. The excitement is here, and we are counting down every single second. Now, if you want to get in touch with the show this evening, @OnTheOtherHoof is our Twitter tag. If you've got any questions for Nick, any for the panel, either regarding the 4 big races, any bets for Cheltenham as well, will be read out at the end of the show. As mentioned, though, we are going to be covering the 4 big races of the meeting. The Champion Hurdle will be the starting point. And it's an interesting Champion Hurdle this year, Nick, because with Fahey now, it opens up the door for something else. You're riding Old Guard personally, but it must be disappointing for racing. But for racing's loss, it's a big gain for someone like yourself who is on an outsider.
Yeah, you'd say that. I think it opens the race much out, and you probably wouldn't have had Little Rocket Fella and a few others, Annie Power supplemented in the race. So, it's certain, like you said, it's opened the race up. You can make a case for 6 of them, I feel, and you wouldn't be totally surprised if any one of those 6 won the race. Again, it's going to be, as it's competitive, I'm sure there will be pace in the race, but with Camping Ground and Annie Power and the others, I think it'll be competitive, and this should be like sort of 3 or 4 in with a chance going to the last, and that's what everyone wants to see.
It promises to be a fantastic race anyway. Annie Power currently your 2-1 favourite, 11-2 for a Nichols Canyon. Identity Thief at 6-1, 13-2 about the new one, the horse Sam Twiston Davis will be riding. My 10 to yours on his comeback at 10-1, 16-1 and bigger the remainder. 2-1 though, Annie Power, Callum. We'll start off with the favourite. She's come in at the last minute to replace her stablemate Fahim, but she's a fairly live chance as well.
Yeah, I mean, she's got an obvious chance. She's a mare with a lot of class, and it's quite surprising that 2 years ago she was, staying thoroughly up the hill over 3 miles in the World Hurdle. And now, it's not. I wouldn't have said 2 years later she'd be going off 2-1 favourite or so for a champion hurdle. But that's the circumstances we've got. In terms of a bet, I don't think you can back her at that price personally. Look, she could easily win. I'm not saying she can't win, because she obviously can win. But for a horse that is rarely seen over 2 miles at pace, is a complete deny to what she's used to. He hasn't had a true proper test since that World Hurdle years ago. So I can't see why you'd want to bet her at 2-1 for all she clearly has capabilities to win the race and is the classiest of these.
I think Annie Power, from a betting perspective anyway, would be the sort of favourite that you would want to take on. Nick, from a rider's point of view, obviously, as we mentioned, you're going to be on Old Guard for the champion hurdle. Is Annie Power the sort of horse that you'd look at as a favourite and think, yeah, she's good, but there are a few chinks in her armour?
Yeah, quite. She is, but she's trained by William Mullins and Ruby Walsh and owned by Rich Ritchie. So I'd imagine she brings that. She brings that sort of positivity with her. But look, she has got late negatives, like you say. Her jumping is not as sure-footed as some others would be, and will she be quite quick enough? So yeah, like you say, how to go about it. I'm sure there'll be others. There'll be horses like Camping Ground, Little Rocket Fella. They're quick enough. They're going to be taking horses on in the front, and there'll be no let up in the pace. And the new one will be sort of pushing them along handy. So there's you're going to have to jump all 8 hurdles well, and not make too many mistakes. And she is renowned for those mistakes, so that has to be a negative in her corner.
We saw 12 months ago when falling at the last in the Mayor's Hurdle on day one. A little bit earlier on in the afternoon, this time in the Champion Hurdle will be her task. But it's going to be no easy task either, Callum. Nichols Canyon's also in the field. Identity Thief won the Fighting Fifth a bit earlier on in the season. The new one as well probably won't get a better chance of winning a Champion Hurdle, especially at the stage of his career that he is now.
Yeah, I mean, all on form in a normal champion hurdle, I'd say in a good renewal, I think they'd all be struggling. But in this sort of renewal, I think they've all got pretty solid chances. Nichols Canyon, Identity Thief are pretty closely matched. Obviously, Nichols Canyon has a poor run to overcome, but back on better ground, I'm sure he'll run a decent race. And with Faheen out, Camping Ground is certainly in there and will give him some sort of competition for the lead. But it helps with Faheen not being in there. Identity Thief, I think, has got to improve, but could clearly improve still. He's the up and comer this year. The new one's been there, done it, but he's probably over his problems from last year. He should be thereabouts. I can't see him winning it myself, but I think he'll be thereabouts. So again, I think you can pick holes in all of them, but at the same time, they're all fairly solid. It's a really trappy, tough race to analyse, I think.
It's probably not, well, it definitely isn't the strongest champion hurdle we've ever had, but like we say, it is a competitive one. You're very close off the track with Sam Twiston Davis, Nick. How much thought did he have to put into riding the new one over Old Guard? I know he's got the love affair with the new one and all the history with him, but Old Guard seems to be the up-and-comer, and he's had a fantastic season himself.
Sam obviously rode Old Guard in the Christmas hurdle and finished behind the new one. So and I think Sam, it goes back a long way with the new one. He's had a lot of success with him. It's obviously a family horse, and I think I wasn't surprised when he made the decision, put it like that. Look, Old Guard, if he didn't run at Kempton, I'm sure it'd be a much shorter price, and he'd still be progressive. People sort of took the opinion he wasn't quite good enough after Kempton, which is probably right, but it was on the back of it was his third quick run, and up since, and he's coming there in good form and he likes to track. He won't mind it on the softer side. So, I think he has a lot of credentials, but I can see why he's getting overlooked at the same time.
You say it's getting overlooked. He's a lot of people are tipping up each way
Yeah.
as one of the live outsiders. I know Callum and myself will mention one at a very big price in a few seconds' time. But Old Guard, he is a horse that he may be an outsider, but you're going there with a lot of confidence with him.
Yeah, quite. Whatever happens, this horse is a chaser in the making. He'll be some Arkle horse next year. That's what I can see his sort of future being. And so whatever he does on Tuesday, there's sure to be that in the back of your mind, like this horse is going to be a serious chaser. But in all seriousness, like you say, it's hard to pick the winner of the race. But you know, if what I'm trying to say is, it's hard to pick the winner of the race, and I think it's open to sort of the new one who's been knocking on the door and has been bumping into the good ones, and you have to give him a lot of respect.
Mm. Who do you have as your biggest danger to Old Guard, or if you weren't on Old Guard, who would you want to be on?
Nicholas Canyon's a serious animal. His jumping has let him down at times. I thought, I don't think he ran his race against Forheen. They say Forheen broke his heart, but I didn't think he ran anywhere near to the form he could have. I think if he turns up, he's going to be extremely hard to beat. I'd actually prefer him over Annie Power, but I do feel he has to turn up.
Nicholas Canyon currently an 11-2 chance and widely second favourite. There's one more horse that we want to mention in this market, and he is currently about 25-1, and Robert Wolf is charged with Camping Ground.
Yes, and he has been confirmed for the race, thankfully. I'm really keen on this horse. I think he's a really serious animal. I think he's been completely underestimated in the betting. He was a very impressive winner of the Rail Keel, and you can easily crab that form on heavy ground with a couple of disappointments. But Little Rockefeller ran a good race in second, and he absolutely demolished him. But it was just the speed he showed, certainly on the back straight, when he flew the three flights on the back straight. And gained a length at all of them and showed proper championship pace, I thought. Ideally, he probably wants 2.5 miles. I think the Aintree Hurdle is going to be the ultimate aim, but I think he can easily run into a place in a race such as this. And he's around 25-1 at the moment. I think that's a mockery of a price, to be honest. I think he could be very good. In terms of ratings-wise, he's not that far off what the standard is at the moment. Annie Power, we haven't rated 180s of 170, but Annie Power's pretty well clear of the rest at the moment. For what it's worth, Old Guard is off 166, so he has a stone to find. He has stone to find with the mare. But Old Guard, you can easily rule out that last run, I thought, because it was a pretty quick turnaround. It was his fourth run in 2 months after some pretty hard races, and the return to Cheltenham is obviously going to be a positive, surely. So I'd certainly rather be on Old Guard and Nick than a few others.
We're not saying that because Nick's here either.
No, I'm not.
One final horse that we do have to actually mention is My Tens or Yours. He was second in the race a few years ago to Jeski, not beaten all that far. He's an intriguing candidate, isn't he? He hasn't been seen for such a long time. He's had a couple of race course gallops. I'll ask both of you your thoughts on My Ten or Yours. I'll start with you, Callum. Is he a player in this Champion Hurdle?
I think it's a very tough ask. Always been a big fan of the horse. Like, if it's good ground and he's back to his best, then he probably wins it, doesn't he? I think that's a big if. It's a big if for me. It would be some training performance. I mean, if Henderson could get My Tent or Yours and Sprinter Sacre to win the two of the championship races, I think that'd be one of the greatest training performances. I think I could remember. I think it's too tough an ask, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd probably be in the same boat as that. And Nick, coming into a Champion Hurdle for My Ten or Yours, I know you wouldn't know the horse, you probably haven't even sat on the horse in the past, but My Ten or Yours, coming into the race of such a long absence, it's got to be against him, but nonetheless, he does have a lot of class about him. And that's when we lose Nick for the first time this evening. We do always have problems when Nick comes on, I will say that. He'll be back within the minute, though. Yeah, it's probably the question. It's like, My Ten or Yours? No, I'm shirking that one. Callum, I'll nail you down to your selection then for the Champion Hurdle.
Well, I've already had a decent bout on Camping Ground, and I wouldn't put anyone off whatsoever. I'm really, really sweet on this horse. I do have a ventured interest in the horse, but I really like him at 25. I think there's far worse bets in this race than quite a few that are ahead of him in the betting. I think are worse value than him.
I have to confess, I have backed Camping Ground mostly because of Callum Say-So. I have to say that. But he was so impressive in the rail kill. Anyone saying that he's going to lack speed coming into a champion hurdle, I wouldn't overly agree with that, to be perfectly honest. He was taking a couple of lengths out of the field at each hurdle.
He nearly won the Imperial Cup, beaten 2 lengths in it last year, and had a breathing problem at the same time, which has been well documented since. Or at least documented since. I don't think it's been well documented. So the fact that he's nearly won an Imperial Cup of 150 as a 5-year-old goes to show how seriously good this horse is for me.
No, I completely agree with that. Camping Ground, a massive player at big prices in the each-way market. We'll move on to the second race of that we're going to be covering of the evening, the Queen Mother Champion Chase. Again, a race that is an intriguing one. We do have a favourite with Under So, who's 8-11 currently, but he's got a few holes in him. He has fallen this season. He has got a few chinks to his armour, but he was the Arkle winner last year and is a Cheltenham Festival winner 12 months ago. We didn't have that about him. That's Under So at 8-11. As Nick's back, welcome back.
Sorry, I'm on my phone and it keeps ringing, and so it cuts the line out. I'm sorry about that.
Well, we did say we always have problems when we get you on board, so.
Yeah, I'm not the most technology whiz kid you'll find.
No, not at all. Going back to the champion hurdle, about my 10 to yours, just the question I was putting to you, how tough will it be for him to come off the back of such a long absence in a Grade 1?
I think it's 700 days, isn't it? Yeah, he's had 2 racecourse gallops. I think they've been well documented. They've been seen. He looks fit and healthy. They're not going to, Nicky Henson knows what it takes to send a horse to champion hurdle, and he's obviously working with Hargam, who's sort of, in that grade. So they'll know what they've got, and they won't send him there undercooked. But like you say, it's a massive ask. And can it be done? Yes, it can be done. But you'd be surprised if it could be done. It's probably the thing about it. But he's at least he's got the ability. But I just think he's plenty skinny enough price if you're looking at it from a betting point of view.
Yeah, I think he's a fascinating part of the race. Whether I can see him winning it, I'm not 100% sure. We'll move on to the Champion Chase, where Under So is your 8-11 market leader, 5-2 about Vitor, who you would assume wouldn't be turning up here, but he was left in the entries this afternoon. Sprinter Sacra at 9-2, a past winner, another past winner with Dodging Bullets at 12-1. Special Tiara also at 12-1. Cider Grugy may sport blinkers for the Gary Moore yard at 14-1. 16th and bigger the remainder. Once again, Nick, we've got another wide open Grade 1. We've been saying Under So, he's a very, very good horse, but again, like Annie Power, he doesn't come without his frailties.
No, you're right. From you lads probably know the form a lot better than what I do, but from just watching the races, I just think Under So, if he can get all the jumps right, I think he's sort of 5-6 lengths better than the Dodging Bullets, your Cider Grugy, your Special Tiara. I think the horse I just mentioned, they're quite close apart, and given a good jump and a bad jump, I think they're very much of a muchness on a good day and a bad day sort of thing. So I think Under So's that clear sort of, I'd say, good £7 better than those lot, and unless he messes up his lines, makes a silly mistake, then it's sort of his to lose in my opinion.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. Callum, it's a horse that me and you have spent probably hours talking about in the past, but he does have those problems, but it is a case of if he puts in a clear round, he more than likely wins the race.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's all to do with his jumping, which is it is a risky proposition at that sort of price, but at the same time, he should outclass them. He comfortably beat Cider Grugy. Obviously at Ascot last time. I thought that was the first time I was really impressed with him. Actually, was Ascot last time. And then when you consider that Sprinter Sacra scraped home against Cider Grugy at Kempton, probably slightly fortuitous to win, I thought. Just goes to show the disparity between the two now. I mean, Sprinter Sacra, I'd love to see Sprinter win. It would be a wonderful thing to see, considering all the problems they've had with him. I like the fact that they've kept him fresh. They haven't run since the day after Boxing Day, because I think that will show him to best effect. But I think he'll come up short against Under So if his jumping holds up.
The one positive for Sprinter Sacre is that he's coming back to Cheltenham, where seemingly he does excel. Nico de Boinville will be on this year. Barry Geraghty, of course, was on when he won the Champion Chase a few years ago for, well, we'll call it your home team for Paul Nicholls. Dodging Bullets was disappointing in the game spirit, but potentially it is being looked into a little bit too much. And let's not forget, he is a winner of this race last year.
Yeah, quite. Look, I can't add to what you said. He was very disappointed in Newbury, but he's never been very good first time out. He's never been very good on soft ground. So, looking back on it, there's probably a bit more reasons and fitness on top of that why he run like that. But he'll be a lot sharper. There's a big schooling morning Tuesday morning in Paul's, and Sam actually schooled him, and he had a big smile on his face after. He was much sharper, much more alert. He sort of jumped crass and worked very well with it. So I think you'll see a totally different animal. I think he'll be knocking on the door, but there's that so sort of standing in his way, I'd imagine.
Is that the sort of feel in the camp that we've got the horse right? We think he's going to run a big race, but you have got Undersow in the race.
Paul did a marvellous job with him last year and won, got on a massive run and won some really good races, and everything, he got the rub of the green, and he's probably achieved an awful lot, but he need everything in his favour to sort of achieve that and beat Undersow, I would imagine.
It would be a fairly big ask for Dodging Bullets, but 12-1 is a fair enough each way price for last year's winner, and another previous winner, and a horse that, in a sense, Dodging Bullets replicated what Side of Grugy did a couple of years ago last season. Callum, we mentioned Side of Grugy very quickly, but an interesting angle that was thrown out by Gary Moore yesterday, earlier on in this week, that blinkers could be applied for the first time.
Yeah, I did hear that, and I think that could be quite interesting. Personally, I think Side of Grugy won a pretty weak Champion Chase. There's not that much depth to this one, but I think he'll come up short, and in particular if it's decent ground, I think he ideally wants it plenty softer than what potentially it could be forecast to be. I mean, there's a lot of them there that have something or other to prove. I mean, Dodgy Bullets made a pretty ordinary return. Obviously, if he came back to form, he would be of interest. Special Tiara, I'm not quite sure what sort of form this horse is in, really. I mean, we obviously haven't seen him since a Tingle Creek. He's one of the most interesting runners, mainly for the fact he's going to be taking on Undersow from the front, and that could determine how the race pans out. It's not a race that I'm really keen on having a bet in at this stage, or probably not at all, to be honest. But there's a couple of outsiders that I thought maybe with some interest. Sizing Granite and God's Own, I thought Sizing Granite goes best fresh. I think that could run a decent race for all. It's got to improve plenty. But God's Own gave Undersow quite a race last year in the Arcourt. It certainly went well for a long way. And I like the fact that he hasn't been messing around on soft ground all season. So I thought he made a respectable return last time, and I think he could run quite well at a price. So if you had to nail me down to the cross and put me on a bet, I'd probably back God's Own. But I think that highlights that there is worries or negatives about quite a few of these apart from Undersow.
I'd agree with that. I wouldn't so much agree with God's Own as an each way shout, but he'd run his race if fit enough on the day. But Undersow probably is the most likely winner. Nick, you haven't got a ride in the Champion Chase as of yet anyway, but you can be completely impartial with this. If you were to ride one, would it be Undersow, or would you take a chance at something at a bigger price?
Oh, Undersow all day long.
Yeah, just go off in front and have a bit of fun.
Yeah, I think I think it's fairly obvious how the race is going to be run. Ruby will sort of pop out with Special Tiara, but he's not. I thought he got a bit of a freebie at Ascot last time, and he was able to set Undersow up all the way around. Yes, he was very good. He did get the run of it, and got no one taking him on. But Special Tiara is going to take him on. And I think Dodging Bullets, Side of Grugy, and Sprinter Sacre, they're just going to follow. But Nico's going to be sort of the top of the hill, pressing Sprinter Sacre on if he's in good form. So he's going to get, so he's not going to get the run of it. So he's going to have to, put in a pretty sure-footed jumping, because if he lets fly at one, those 4 or 5 in behind, they're going to be there ready to pounce.
I think that's the perfect thing to say about actually that Underso, because Side agrees he's been ridden a bit more forward this year. Sprinter Sacre will be snapping away at his heels, and Nico de Boinville will want to take that up fairly soon and really get the pressure on Underso, especially on his jumping. But a wide open champion chase. But I think the summary that we've come to is that if Underso jumps, he more than likely wins, and we probably will have a new name on the crown.
Yeah. Say so.
Solid preview, solid preview. Halfway through the races that we're going to be previewing this evening. Hopefully, our next one could provide one of the festival bankers. That is the World Hurdle. Hopefully, not in Nick's case anyway. But Thistlecrack is your 6-5 favourite. It's 4-1 then about Annie Power. Alpha de Zobo at 6-1, 8-1 for Cole Harden. Vroom Vroom Mag at 8-1. Saphir de Reux at 10-1. Different Gravy at 12-1. 14s and bigger the rest. The rest include Au Petit Soin, who is currently at 16-1. Nick, we haven't seen him since the Coral Cup last year. He has had a racecourse gallop that's been fairly well advertised when partnering Saphir de Reux. But you were on board Saphir de Reux that day, weren't you?
Yeah, obviously Sam gets a choice between Saphir and Ux Petit Son. I think most people in the camp thought he'd pick Ux Petit Son, hence why that was how we galloped them. But Sam's opted to go with Saphir de Reux. I can see why he's done that. It's probably the correct decision, or the safest decision, because he was second in the race last year. He's coming back to form now, whereas I don't think you've seen the best of him this year. Maybe his win was holding him back early doors, and he's had the same operation or similar operation to what Silviano Conti had, and he come out and won the Ascot Chase the other day. So I can see why Sam's chosen him. And he's not to be forgotten either, Saphir de Reux.
Au Petit Soin is the mount of yourself, though. It's not a bad one to pick up, and let's just remember, 12 months ago, you did put Au Petit Soin as your festival bet of the whole meeting at 16-1 for the Coral Cup. He wasn't 16-1, I have to say, the day after our video. He was shortened by a few bookmakers, so we can put that down to you.
Yeah, well, you've obviously got loads of punters watching you.
Or people that are just willing to dive in and do anything. Au Petit Soin for yourself, though, he's had a year off. That's going to be a bit of a tough ask to overcome, but he's got undoubted ability.
Yeah, look, he's got endless amounts of potential. I think it's the key word, potential. You know, he has won a Coral Cup on his third start, which, you know, was a remarkable effort. And, you know, I'm sure he's stronger now. His jumping should be better. And he stayed on up the hill, so he handled the occasion. So look, there's a lot going for him. And I'm sure he will end up, you know, a proper Grade 1 horse. So, you know, he's a privilege to be able to ride a horse of that caliber. But, you know, first and foremost, he you know, needs to sort of settle early on. He can be quite keen in his races, like he was in the Coral Cup. So if he can just fall asleep early, the first mile of the race, that will help him, you know.
He does have a small mountain to overcome. That mountain, Callum, is Thistlecrack, who has been absolutely awesome in this division throughout the course of this season. The winner at Aintree last year, a winner on Trials Day, as well at Cheltenham. It would seem that he carries all for him in the 3-mile division.
I don't see what beats him if he runs to what he's been running this season. He looks obviously ended last season with a success at Aintree on good ground, so that all the talk that he won't be proved as effective back on good ground what he has been on soft and heavy ground over this winter, I think is nonsense, to be honest. He's only had 3 runs, so it's hardly like he's going to be going over the top. If he does run to what he has been this season, then I think it's a question of how far. I really do, and I think if he was trained by somebody else, I think he could easily be odds on. I mean, 6-5 in place at the moment. I think you could easily say that represents value, because I just don't see, in particular, I don't see what opposition beats him. I mean, Cole Harden could easily bounce back and win the race again, but I think he didn't have a horse such as Thistlecrack in last year's renewal. And you've got Alpha de Zobo at the head of the betting, but I thought he had Thistlecrack, for what it's worth, had his measure when Alpha de Zobo fell at Aintree last year, and that was on good ground. And I don't necessarily think Alpha de Zobo's improved that much since, whereas Thistlecrack has. And I thought in particular Ascot he was extremely impressive. But Cheltenham he got the job done despite the fact his main rival disappointed. It was very, very tough ground that day, but he still did it with real aplomb. I really struggled to see past him, and at the moment, considering there's a lot of these horses at the head of the betting at the moment that probably or won't run. I mean, Annie Power and Vroom Vroom Mag in particular. Different gravy. I don't. Is he not running or is he running? I don't know.
I've no idea about different gravy. I'll be honest.
No. And the others, I'd have to think that Thistlecrack would need to disappoint for them to win.
He'd have to disappoint in a big way. From an outside jockey looking in at Thistlecrack, Nick, how impressed with him have you been throughout the course of the entire season?
I'm going to have to go against Callum. I don't think he's a Douvan certainty. I think Douvan is a good thing in the Arkle. I don't.
Yeah.
You'd expect a horse that's going to be one of the favourites for the World Hurdle to beat the opposition that he's beaten. You know, Petit Zig. I'm surprised he comes second. I don't think he ran anywhere near to his best, and his best would never be good enough to win a World Hurdle. And there was, another horse in that race. I think that Cheltenham Trials Day form was weak. I don't think the Ascot race, Safi de Roe had a very hard race in Hennessy. His wind cut out and he was probably sort of under par that day. So he should have beat them like he did. And, okay, he has beaten like he did, but I don't think he's a nailed on good thing. I think you're going to see better horses taking him on. Cold Hard, and he's going to be, if the ground's a bit better, he'll be back on song. Safi de Roe, like I said earlier, he'll be back on song. There's going to be other horses that's going to be taking him on, testing his jumping, and putting him to the test. And he won't be able to do it all so easy.
It's interesting to hear someone taking Thistlecrack on, actually, because it's almost the accepted thing that, all right, Thistlecrack will probably win the World Hurdle, and that's that. We'll leave it at that. But it's a fairly reasoned argument. It's interesting what you say about Petit Zig, obviously finishing second on Trials Day to Thistlecrack. But then you leave yourself, Nick, with the small case of what would you take him on with. Obviously, you're on Old Petit Sois, has his chances, but Alpha des Obo, Cole Harden, you gave a quick mention to, would probably be the obvious two to take him on with. But for the most likely horse to beat Thistlecrack, who would you side with?
I think Paul's got a massive chance. Safi de Roe, I know it's Petit Son. I promise you they'll be fit and ready, and Safi de Roe will be better than he was last year. Even I would go as far as saying he looks in great order at home, looks a picture, and looks Petit Son. He's almost. He could be a real dark horse in the race. No one really knows how good he is just yet. So, Kilcooley's coming back. He's a tough, very tough horse. There's going to be plenty of pace in the race. It's going to be a grueling race. And, I just don't think Thistlecrack is as good thing as what people are making him out to be.
It's an interesting point, but I know Callum will be delighted that you just mentioned Kilcooley at a big enough price. Kilcooley does go to the World Hurdle, and Callum, again, he's another horse at a big enough price that you could have an each way bet on him and he'll really give you a run.
Yeah, I do like the horse a lot. I've been really disappointed we haven't seen him for quite a while. I think last time we saw him was when he bolted up at Wetherby. I think that's right. Am I right in saying that? I haven't seen him since.
Yes, yeah.
So I would be slightly disappointed that he's obviously had a few setbacks, and his best form has come on very bottomless ground. But he's going to make a really smart chase, I assume, next year. And he's a very smart horse. There's a lovely family. I think he'll run well, but I do worry about the absence and the fact that his best form has certainly come on very testing ground.
A horse that we haven't really given, not respected, that'd be the wrong way to put it, but a great deal of time to is Cole Harden, who, to Callum, would be more effective, especially with the wind operation and on better ground. But he hasn't really disgraced himself a huge deal this year.
No, I don't think so. I think it's very much revolved around Cheltenham this season. I thought he ran a pretty respectable race in a long distance hurdle, and then last time I think you can pretty much ignore that run in the rail keel. Look, last year I didn't think it was the strongest World Hurdle that he won. I think he might not get as easy a way in front as he did last time. For what it's worth, he put up a rating of 158 on time form last year, and Thistlecrack, when winning at Ascot, put up 168. So I think that's the sort of level I think they are at. I think Cole Harden can certainly run to better. I think we have him rated as optimum racing is 163, so he's £5 behind Thistlecrack. But look, I still think Thistlecrack has his measure. Personally, I think he's much stronger for.
Thistlecrack, a selection for yourself, Callum?
Yeah, it's going to be boring, but look, there's going to be some offers about, and if there's a decent price on him, I would very very much be tempted because I'm really struggling to see past him. I know that's boring, but there's nothing else I want to be on.
I think it speaks testament about Thistlecrack's ability that Colin Tizard said, win, lose or draw, next year he will be lining up in the Gold Cup as a novice. It speaks testament to the ability of Thistlecrack and how highly they regard him. Nick, I assume you'd be taking him on. Obviously, you've got the ride on all pretty smart. Who would be the biggest danger to Thistlecrack, if not yourself?
But from a jockey's point of view, you've always got to go in with a mentality that your horse. So that's probably why I'm a bit negative about Thistlecrack, because I know he's the one to beat, and I've got a ride a good chance in the race. So you've got to bring out the negatives in your opponents, and I've probably convinced myself he can't win now. So that's probably why I'm a bit negative. But look, he's obviously a worthy favourite. There's no getting away from it. But I think both the pools have got good chances. They've been working well together, but I'm gonna have to stick with Expeti Son because if I don't believe he'll win, no one will.
Yeah, that's about as sound a logic as anything. Probably better logic than we've applied this evening as well. The final race that we're going to be covering, though, is the feature race of the week, the Cheltenham Gold Cup. The past couple of seasons has maybe not been the strongest of renewals. Last year's was definitely a good renewal. Coney Gree, unfortunately, is not turning up to defend his crown. We do have the runner-up, though, with Jacadam. Road to Riches was third. He hopefully will turn up to try and get a couple better this year. But Don Cossack is currently your favourite at 9-2. 11-2 about Cube Card, who's done nothing wrong this year, and also last year's runner-up Jacadam. 11-2 also about Don Poli and Vitor. 12-1 Smad Place. 16-1 Road to Riches. 20-1 and bigger the remainder. Again, Nick, it's a race that at the moment you don't have a ride in, but looking in from a racing fan's point of view, this is one of the races, if not the race of the week.
Yeah, it's exciting, and there's still that bit of unknown who Brian Cooper and who Ruby Walsh is going to ride as well. So I think that'll be interesting to see who they side with. And also you've got the West Country Horse Q card. That'll be great. Good story with a £1 million bonus. There's a lot of stories in behind the horses. So Willie Mullins yet to win the race, as well as Gordon Elliott and Gigginstown. So it's just it's a fascinating race, and it's a race be enjoyable to watch whatever happens.
Asking you to step out of your Nick Scholfield body for the moment, I'm going somewhere with this question. Don't judge me so far. If you were Brian Cooper, out of Don Poli and Don Cossack, which horse would you ride? And if you were Ruby Walsh, out of Vitor and Jacadam, which horse would you ride?
And Road to Riches.
And Road to Riches. And Road to Riches.
To be honest, I'd be more interested in what Ruby rode. I much fancy his two more than what I do Brian Cooper's. I think Jacadam, massive chance, and if Ruby sided with him, that would be my winner. But look, if Ruby sides with Vitor, then that just says that he thinks he will stay. And Ruby's judgment, if he picked Vitor over Jacadam, last year's second, I think that's the biggest tip of all, I would say, because he's got last year's second to choose from, and Vitor potentially the best horse in training. So he's got, in my opinion, I think he's got his decision will reflect what I probably would choose on the day to think win. I think Brian Cooper's got a very tough choice, and I wouldn't want to make that choice for him. It's going to be a difficult one. But I can't see Don Poli or Don Cossack winning just from a personal point of view. They're two very, very good horses, don't get me wrong, but I think Don Poli just lacks that gears middle part of the race to travel in the race like the Gold Cup. I know you need stamina, that's always said, but you still need to be able to travel in the race middle part, and I just think he lacks that. I think if he shuffled back and you lose his position and have too much to sort of make up. And Don Cossack, he's a bit similar, but I just worry about him, in a sort of a rough and tumble Gold Cup, and I think he just could end up a bit like the King George, just maybe get bullied out of it a bit.
I'd agree with that as far as you go, saying I'd be more inclined to be interested in what Ruby Walsh is going to ride rather than what Brian Cooper's going to ride. Massive respect to Don Poli and Don Cossack, but personally, I'm a massive Jacadam fan. I was delighted with the way he ran last year as just a 6-year-old. A 7-year-old this year is only going to get better in time, but the Tour is standing in the way for a potential mount of Ruby Walsh. Callum, same question to you. Brian Cooper, who would you expect him to ride with Don Poli and Don Cossack? And then Ruby Walsh, same question with the Tour and Jacadam.
I think you'll ride Don Cossack. For what it's worth, I do think Don Cossack is the wrong favourite personally. I think there's so little to split these, and it's fair to say from my point of view, I haven't got a clue who wins this race, and it's not often that I think I haven't got a single opinion on who wins this race, but I genuinely don't. And I think so much will depend on what the ground will be on the Friday. I think that's a huge factor, and who eventually turns up. Whatever, I think so little to split these. Don Cossack, I do worry about the fact that he doesn't seem to travel with as much zest this season, I don't think, in his races. And for all I thought he would have won the King George if he'd stayed up, I do kind of agree with the point Nick made, kind of like he gets bullied out of it. And I think the same as well with his Cheltenham record. I think that is a certain worry, and I think that possibly the two are linked. Q Card, I struggle to knock. Jacadam, likewise, I think his jumping action, I think, makes him vulnerable sometimes to a fall. But if he jumps like he did last year in the Gold Cup, then you'd be mad to rule him out on jumping wise, because if he jumps like that, then you've got no worries in that regards. It's just whether he's good enough. Don Poli, I've never really been a big fan of, but the more I come to it, the more I hear people say, yeah, look, he's bone idle in front. I can see their point, and it is a race that often the Gold Cup does go to a horse that doesn't travel early on. I mean, Synchronized was off the bridle after about 3 furlongs. Bosworth hardly travelled in his races, so it's not like it's a race that can't be won by a type like him. I do worry that does he quite have the class for it. I'm not so sure. If it came up rattling fast, very fast ground, and Ruby was on Vitor, and Vitor was in the same form as like he did when he won at the festival last year, he'll take some pegging back, and it will take a lot for him to stay. But he could easily win it. He's by far the best horse in this race for me. I think he's the best horse. Probably not by far, but I think he's the best. It's just whether is he going to see out that trip is a big question mark. I've gone through all the runners, still don't know who I think will win it. I can't put a selection. I've already backed Road to Riches. I think he'll come up short. I think the better ground, hopefully better ground than what it was last year. And I thought that was a huge run for finishing 3rd last year. Hopefully he runs. I think he could easily run into a place, but he's probably vulnerable to a couple of these.
One question I wanted to put back to you as well, Callum. Ruby Walsh he's taken a while anyway to decide between Jacadam and Vitor. Obviously, it's a very hard decision. In my mind, I'm thinking if he thinks Vitor is going to stay, then there's no doubt in my mind that he'll ride Vitor. Yeah. The fact that he's leaving it so long before he announces whether he rides Vitor or Jacadam, that I'm not trying to get into Ruby Walsh's head, but that would give me the thought that he's not 100% certain himself.
I would agree. I tend to agree. I think personally, the fact that he thinks so much of this horse, and he clearly is a very good horse, I think it'd be a no-brainer, personally. But I mean, if he didn't ride him, then it'd be a huge negative, an absolute huge negative, and that you'd probably just rule him out straight away.
Yeah, I agree. Nick, simple question to you: does Vitor stay the Gold Cup trip?
Yes.
Yes. So does that mean Vitor wins the Gold Cup for you?
If Ruby rides it.
I don't know what you got against Paul Townend, but we had a question a little bit earlier. I think it was Sam Boswell that sent it in regarding a horse, a bigger price, Mad Place, who, for my penny's worth anyway, I think he's the perfect Grand National horse that isn't going to go. 12-1. Could he potentially be the forgotten horse here, Nick?
Who was that? Sorry.
It's Mad Place.
Look, he's going to serve it up to him. He's going to make the race, isn't he? Effectively, he's going to bounce out, every post to winning post, and he's a jumper, and he's going to be there to shot at. But he was very impressive on trials day. The new course probably suits him. Great jumper, etc., etc. He fell short in the King George, which is always going to be in the back of your mind. But you know, they might adopt different tactics, which might bring out that bit more improvement from him. But you would expect him to sort of be still in front, turning in, you know, the likes of Jacadam, Vitor, and Q-Card biting on his heels from there, and expect them sort of just go past him, and he'll be looking at sort of third or fourth. But you know, it'd be a great sight if he did win.
It's mad play. For my mind, I think he may have come up a little bit short in a Gold Cup. I think that would be the general consensus of you guys as well. Callum, I know you're going to hate this question, but who wins the Gold Cup?
I genuinely can't answer it. I genuinely can't answer that question. No.
I'm glad we have you on this show.
I'm sorry, viewers. There's a big difference between who will win the Gold Cup and who is the bet. And for me, I've not run a no bet. I'd probably back Road to Riches at that price each way. But look, I think all 5 of those ahead of betting have got superb chances at the same time. I've got negatives from them all.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, Q-Card has done absolutely nothing wrong this year, but it's still my head saying Q-Card cannot win a Gold Cup. He probably can. This year he's been imperious in this division with the King George, Charlie Hall as well, and also the Betfair chase. It's just Q-Card. I can't get it out of my head. Q-Card winning a Gold Cup is just something I cannot fathom, albeit he's done nothing wrong this year. Nick, same question to you. Who wins the Gold Cup?
To be honest, I'm between Jacadam and Vitor. I know it sounds stupid, but if Ruby picks one or the other, that's good enough for me, because you know he's running them both, and he's probably one of the best jockey judges there is, and you know that would sort of swing it. But if I was guessing, I would say pick Jacadam.
That's a great answer. That's a wonderful answer.
Far less fence sitting than me as well. So
yeah, exactly. Like, Callum, you're not on this every week now. Nick, I'm going to need you back next week. That's all the races that we have to preview for this evening. We do have a few questions that have come in. You still have time to get your questions in as well. At On The Other Hoof is out with 10. Just tweet your question or fancy in if you've got a question for Nick regarding Cheltenham, and then he will answer them right about now. The first question comes in from Kai Wills saying, can you ask Nick how excited he is? He's worded this in a very, very one-sided way, Nick. He said how excited he is to win the Triumph on Zubair, the Adonis winner, a great record in the race.
Zubair.
Yeah. Is that you chanting his name?
I think that's enough. I mean, we should all just pile on now, really, after that.
I regret backing So Royal now.
He's my best.
In all seriousness, what sort of feel did he give you in the Adonis at Kempton?
It probably wasn't good enough. That form wasn't. But you know the improvement that I'm sure he'll make from that will be good. He's sharpened up at home a lot from it. Didn't take much out of him, so I'm relying on the improvement to come, and which will be needed. But you know he's just a likeable horse, and you know he's certainly my best rider, and very much looking forward to it.
He's been compared to Zarkanda. Is there similar sentiments there from you, or?
To be honest, I never rode Zarkanda, but got bought from the same yard, and he costs a lot of money, and running the same race Zarkanda did, leading to the Triumph, won in a similar sort of fashion. This does apparently the same thing as what Zarkanda did schooling. So yeah, he sounds pretty similar, but Zarkanda went and won the Triumph, so I hope he's really similar.
Yeah, it's not a bad horse to be compared to. I have to say, all my years, which isn't many, in horse racing, whenever a jockey's asked about a horse, there are certain horses that make them beam up and smile just by talking about them. The smile that you've just given with Zubair, I think, tells a lot more than anything you can ever put into words about him.
Yeah, he's a bit of a dude, to be fair. I actually am a bit of a fan of him. Not gonna lie. You know,
just lucky he gets to ride him as well.
6 in the race, and you know they're all very good horses. Like Canetta will want to beat older horses, and he's probably the solid option. You know, he jumps, you know, he travels, you know, he stays, and he's beat the older horses and beat last year's Triumph winner. So look, he's the solid option, as it were. Was you know, Zubair's got to improve effectively off his run at Kempton, and Canzovo needs to, put Cheltenham's run behind him, but he's got bags of potential. Frodon beat Fixler Cap, Paul's other horse, and Tommy Silver won well on better ground at Musselburgh. So, it's, it's not, Paul's got some good horses in the Triumph, and I should think every jockey riding each will think theirs is the best. I think Sam's probably confident he's on Connectable, who's got his best form, and I should think Sean's confident on Frodon, and Noel's confident on Canzovo. So we all think we've got a good one, and they are all good ones, and it would be what turns up best on the day, really.
I think I read today that regarding Tommy Silver in the Triumph, Johnny Burke's been flown into the ride.
Yeah. I think he rides, and obviously Paul would very rarely run that many in the race. So he's got the spin on him.
He's got a fairly strong hand in the race, nonetheless. Killian Doherty has thanked you for All Petit Soin last year, putting him up in the Coral Cup as your bet of the festival. He's saying, what's one handicapper Nick would want to ride from the Nichols Yards this year?
There's probably two what I call talking horses, like Petit Soin was last year. There's Diogo de Charmo and the Fred Winter. He looks potentially very well handicapped, yet to run in this country. He's done everything right at home, showing the right signs, and I think he's been well supported now. He's sort of second favourite, so the value's gone in him, but he's certainly a talking horse. And I'd say the other one that's sort of gone under the radar a bit is a horse called All Yours in the County. I know he's been working pretty well at home, and won a Grade 1 last year. He was unlucky the Fred Winter. He's been waiting for better ground, and if the County did come up sort of goodish ground, he'd have a massive chance.
That's All Yours in the County Hurdle. And Diego du Charmil. For a horse that, in the Fred Winter, for a horse that hasn't run in this country yet, you will not believe the amount of questions we've had in about Diego du Charmil. So many people just want to know about him. It's ridiculous. Back to Kai Wills. He said, I'm a big Don Poli fan, and see him casually going by all of them up the hill with his ears pricked. He is not slow. I don't think he's slow, Callum. I think he's a little bit lazy.
Bone idle. I think Kevin Blake used the term bone idle. I think it's a perfect term for him. I mean, he's not a slow horse. I mean, I said before he's a slow horse, and you look, the fact he won a Martin Pipe, and he just is absolutely idle. He's lazy, and it's not slow.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And then Kai, a question directed at you, Nick, saying everything at Cheltenham. What do you look forward to most of it?
Obviously, if you get a winner. But
I should have seen that answer coming, to be honest. Jason Herridge has tweeted in, saying, asking about Southfield Theatre, actually. I'm not sure where Southfield Theatre is going, if I'm being totally honest, but it's a horse we probably haven't seen the best of this year.
Yeah, I think he runs on the Tuesday in the 3-mile handicap.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's right to flag that one up, because he was second to Don Poli behind Don Poli in the RSA last year after making a bad mistake top of the hill. Looks quite well handicapped on the back of that form, considering he's going for the Gold Cup. Has run no race this year, in all fairness. I don't think he's been quite right, but I think they tweaked a few things and changed a few things, so sure to show up a lot better. Seems in good form at home. So he goes there with a fair chance.
Imagine good ground will be helping his chance as well. Another question from Jason Harris saying, of the two in the RSA, or the big two anyway in the RSA, No More Heroes or more of that?
No More Heroes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think it's just so impressive the way he does everything so effortlessly. We will be previewing the RSA as well here on the other hoof in the coming few days. The Novice Chasers will be next on our agenda. Another horse that I assume will be going by, or for handicap purposes, maybe the Coral Cup, but is Politolog. A question from Jason Harris saying, do you think a big field will potentially be against Politolog? Hello?
Who's that to?
Sorry, to you, Nick.
Right.
Yeah, so
We don't care about Callum's opinion on that one.
Yeah. I have no opinion on that, so.
No, not really. I just saw him on the race last year, same colours, same colour. They do so much scoring at home nowadays, and
Yeah.
there's not too much of a worry.
What a 17 runner race at Auteuil, so.
Just got rid of Sam on the flat. Jeff Handley, so I was asked a question regarding the Grand National. Obviously, a few more weeks to wait for the Grand National, but he said rightly you're heading up to Kelso this Sunday to ride Union East. Could he potentially be a horse to look out for the Grand National?
If you asked me at the beginning of the year, I said no chance, but he's just steadily improving now and run a good race at Sandown. Went and backed it up at Kelso last time. He's sort of coming to himself, and I think he's the sort of horse that just is sort of slowly improving. And beginning of the season, he wasn't himself for whatever reason, but he's steadily coming to himself. Schooling this morning felt very good. So yeah, no, he's on the upgrade. It'd be nice to see how he goes against Many Clouds and Philip Hobbs's horse Cerrito Sunrise up at Kelso. When he's steadily improving, he certainly has the right profile for the race, and the fact he's got a low weight, he's sure to stay, and if he can just get his act together early, he certainly wouldn't be the strangest result in the world.
I know it's very early to look in on this, and you probably hate me asking the question, but all things go well. Do you have any idea what horse that you'd be on in the National? Or?
No, not really. Paul has plenty in it. Wonderful Charm, Stam winner. Just a par. Montferrand. Trying to think what else, but he's got a few in it, so hopefully we get a chance on one of them.
Yeah, there's a fair few chances in that. John Anthony Doherty has sent in a tweet next. This one, I'll direct it to Callum first, saying if Don Cossack wasn't going to fall or make a mistake, he'd be all over him. But the extra 2 furlongs, do you think that won't put as much pressure on his jumping?
Don't really know what point he's trying to make there.
No, I think there's a set, in my eyes anyway, I think I'll try and defend the point here a bit. Don Cossack, he's a little bit lackluster with his jumping, I think. He flicks through the top of them. I think he's trying to say if they go a slower pace with an extra 2 furlongs, could that help him out? But it's the Gold Cup.
Yeah, they're not going to go at a slower pace, surely.
No.
It's the Gold Cup. My worry isn't really necessarily about his jumping. It's just the fact that he hasn't got a great. I mean, was that his first 4 or over fences, or no? He fell 2 years ago.
He fell in the RSA.
RSA. So yeah, the one thing worrying me is just he's not really travelled recently in his races, and his Cheltenham record. They're my negatives, and the fact is he is actually favourite at the moment. I think I can back him at that price, and I don't know. My opinions on the Gold Cup.
Yeah, I think if you've got worries about Don Cossack's jumping or Jack Adams jumping and using that against him, you've got to have worries about Don Cossack's as well. A question that it can be rephrased for you, Nick, saying what would be your best ride in a handicap for the entirety of the festival?
I don't know what I'm riding yet.
Tell you what, we'll get back to you, Gungered in a few days' time when Nick knows what he's riding. Is there any sort of clue that you might have as to what you're riding, or is it literally just up in the air?
A lot of them have got double entries, and if you look for all the handicaps, you need to be fairly high up the list to be getting in, and you might not get in what you want to run in because it's so tight. But no, I don't really know. It's sort of all depends how many runs, etc. And just get the luck of the draw, really. Hope you're on a good one.
I think we'll take Diego du Charmil and be fairly thankful of that, I think. One final question from Luc Copin. I think we can work together as a team with it for this one. He said, 1 accumulator, 5 horses. Who do you pick?
God.
Now, these can be any prizes. So, Nick, I assume, and me and Callum aren't going to take this away from you, you want to put Duvan in there?
Duvan's a certainty. He's an absolute monster. I'd put Thistlecrack in, but Nick...
I'd put Thistlecrack in, but Nick doesn't agree with that, and we're working as a team here, Callum.
Yeah.
This is hard now, isn't it?
Yanworth for me.
Yeah, Yanworth, I think, has to go in there. Until next season, I don't fancy it at all.
I don't really have an opinion on that mare's novice race, but everybody seems to think Lamini will win it. So, Super
Yeah,
Hurry.
go with that and Vroom Vroom Mag.
Yeah.
Vroom Vroom Mag. And I assume, Nick, you'd want to put Zubair in it as well, wouldn't you?
Go on, put Zubair in.
Jan Zuber.
Yeah. Right, okay, so we've got Zubair, Duvan, Yanworth. Are we putting Limini in there?
Yeah.
And Vroom Vroom Mag. Right, there's your 5, Lucas. I'm just saying, Nick, if all the first 4 win, it's all going to come down to you on Zubair. You put the pressure right on yourself there.
We have a tough audience to please after last year, so.
Exactly, yeah. Zubair, only 5-1 this year. That's all the questions that we've got for this evening. And that's the end of the show as well, effectively. Callum, thank you for your time once again this evening. Nick, once again, 3rd year running, thank you so much for your time and spending it with us. And thank you for looking forward to the festival. We wish you the best of luck over the next 8 days, really, but the 4 days at the festival especially with Zubair as well.
Cheers. And Liverpool are winning, so it's happy days.
Oh, you're not a Liverpool fan, are you? Oh, come on. I liked you before that. I did not have you down as a Liverpool fan, I'll say that. Nick, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be previewing the Sandown card for the Imperial Cup tomorrow evening, actually, on Friday, depending when you're watching this. Saturday at Sandown promises to be a good day of action. We'll also have a few more Cheltenham previews coming at you over the course of the next few days. @OnTheOtherHoof is our Twitter tag. Stay up to date with everything on there. But until our next show, join us on the Other Hoof.